A very good evening, viewers, and welcome to Africa in Beyond Television Network. We continue to take a look on what is happening in Africa. And this time around, let us go to Kenya. Remember, these protests which are happening in Kenya, they are worrisome, and lives are being lost as we speak at this point in time. It's very sad that we are losing lives. And the Kenyan government, they have deployed the military. The High Court has ordered the government, the police, the intelligence service to release the protesters who were arrested. These are the issues which are happening. But if you take a look onto what is happening in Kenya, it seems as if the state institutions, some of them, they are pro-Ruto, some of them, they are pro-citizens. For example, the High Court, the High Court judgment is indeed something commendable, because they've instructed the police to release the people who were abducted. And because 48 hours passed, these people being abducted and being held. And, this is something very commendable. But taking a look on the ZANU PF government in terms of how they are approaching this whole thing, they are in panic. It seems as if they are in panic because Kenya has set a template or a precedence about how protest can be successfully done. Remember that President Ruto backtracked on the issue of the finance bill. He ordered that finance bill to be scrapped entirely, and he refused to sign it. So these protests were based on that finance bill. That was the actual reason why people got into the streets, and they won. That they had their victory, which means people power can force the government to reverse some of the things. In the context of Zimbabwe, when people are tired of corruption, when people are tired of looting, they can get into the streets to demand that corruption is dealt with. The people of Zimbabwe can actually go into the streets and demand that corruption is dealt with. But here is the thing with dictators, and one of the things I have observed from the Kenyan issue is that when people get into the streets, they are peaceful, they are holding placards, they are fighting, and they are not violent. The government comes then with the tear gas. The government comes then with bullets. The government comes then with water cannons. That is how the entire situation escalates. For example, in Kenya, when they started this protest, they were very peaceful, doing about their own issues. And they wanted to go to parliament to make the parliament of Kenya understand what they were telling them to do. But what happened is that the police started using water cannons because they didn't want these protesters to get to parliament. They wanted parliament to continue uninterrupted. But the goal of these young people was to make sure that parliament suspends what they were doing. So there was a clash of interest there. The police started throwing tear gas, started using water canisters and water cannons, and that made the people start to throw stones, start to throw all sorts of things. And if you take a look on how the government of Zimbabwe is following this issue, Varakashi particularly, they are saying, this is a way of trying to show the people of Zimbabwe to say, guys, never think of these things, because if you do, we will come hard after you. But is that true? It depends with the motive of the people. It depends with the mood of the people. It depends with what the people want. In 2017, the people of Zimbabwe held the most peaceful protest in the whole world in 2017, which means Zimbabweans are generally peaceful. They can do whatever they pledge to do, Zimbabweans can do. If Zimbabweans pledge to hold a peaceful campaign, they can do it. Take a look on the people who attended court today. Unfortunate that a lot of people, some people were also arrested at court today, despite being peaceful and holding placards, but they were arrested. This is how the government makes people change their hearts and tone when they are approaching the government. And, this is the constitutional provision. When people are mandated by the constitution to protest against anything, they must protest. And by not protesting, the people of Zimbabwe will be neglecting their constitutional mandate, which means the people of Zimbabwe, when they know that something like corruption is happening, and they are not peacefully protesting, they are in support of corruption. That is the best meaning we can get. When the people of Zimbabwe know that something is happening and they are not peacefully protesting, what it means is they will be conniving with the state unknowingly to have that happen, because the only way the people of Zimbabwe can register their displeasure is through Section 58 and Section 59 of the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe. The same way Kenyans are doing. But the reason why the Kenyan situation has escalated further is because of how the Kenyan government has responded to this issue. But then there is something very concerning. If you take a look onto this tweet, which is right here on the screen, John Zamsoro, who is the President Emerson Mnangagwa spokesperson, is talking or commenting about the clash between the State Intelligence Director and the Vice President of Kenya. These are two powerful people within the Kenyan administration, and they are clashing publicly, and it's not a good situation. We have seen the Vice President blaming the intelligence for misleading the president. But we have seen the intelligence of Kenya, we have seen them coming out to then blame the vice president. They didn't blame the vice president only. They actually told the vice president that he is responsible for the protests which are happening in Kenya, because they are saying that he is the beneficiary. If Ruto is removed, he is the beneficiary. Which means this has gone too far. This is no longer good. So which means if indeed the vice president is involved, it means he is not going to let the people back down. It means he needs to change locations. He needs to make sure that immediately he fights to the end if he is involved. So this is a messy situation which is happening there. But if it is indeed true, you are the vice president of a country, taxes are being hiked, but there is too much expenditure from the government. They are not cutting expenditure from the government officials, but they are hiking taxes. If you are the president, if you are the vice president and you stand with the people, you are the good man. You are a good man. If the vice president did so, he's a good man, because he understands that this overtaxing of people is not good. For example, in Zimbabwe, we have so many taxes which we are paying. For the sake of equity, the government needs to raise money to pay. Number one, my white farmers. Number two, their lifestyle. Their very expensive lifestyle. And also their entrepreneurship. That is the reason why they are collecting too much taxes from the people, so that they fund all those three key things. So you could actually understand and see the reason why Kenyans are agitated, and also a possibility that Zimbabweans might be agitated because it's a similar situation. Imagine you are paying taxes for Chivayo to get a tender and they loot that money. Imagine, guys, you are paying taxes for Zach to arrest criminals, but they blow that money without a single conviction. Imagine with the rate of corruption we have in Zimbabwe. So if you put these things together, you could see that there is in Zimbabwe, the reasons for people to protest are even far much more than for Kenya. Imagine Kenya, they agreed to give their own people Starlink because at least they have sense when products are more cheaper services, the business must be running and everything. So I want also to give you an example, like in Zimbabwe here, you would see you go to a company which is running a business. That company in a potential way, it can grow and create more jobs. It is taxed, but you go to a very big company, more established, which is now making profits year in, year out. That company, even if it can 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years without making profits, you see that company, ichipiwa tax cut. You see, that is the problem we have in Zimbabwe, where these big companies, they are given tax exemption, but very small companies, they will continue to pay tax. And the individuals, the people of Zimbabwe, they will continue to pay tax. But these rich people, they are not taxed. You see, even if they are taxed, Varkuba, you see. So if you go to the government, you see kuti vanhu the top echelons structures of government, they are benefiting directly from various activities. For example, kune munhu wekuti ari kuwana ane government car. Ane government car kudaro paya anonopedza a particular period anogona kutenga that car at net book value. And the other person, a subordinate, are lower than that person who is working also in the same department but at different levels, is not allowed to buy a car duty free. You see, those are the problems. For example, unofana kutenga motikari 10 years and older, but 10 years and older you can't afford that. Imagine if these cars could dara, you could buy Honda Fit Shika, everything intact at 3,000 maximum. 3,000 maximum. You could actually see it was something else. So if vakabvisa duty, reduce makore ngatiti at least vakati 20 years motikari ine 20 years and above, you could see you can buy a nice car which is 20 years old at 1,500 ichisvika pa Chirundu border, or 1,800 ichisvika pa Harare. You see, people can afford to buy better cars. But right now, the same amount of money iyoyo urikuenda unotenga kaskoro kekuti munhu akutokatengesa ukakumunetsa urikuzviona. You have to part ways with so much money kuti ukabalance. Unotenga kamotikari and say regai ndiende kumusha kanobhoila usati wapinda mchivhu on your way to Masvingo. You see, this is the problem. Unotopesera wakutorwa nemukadzi because of that particular car. That is the situation in Zimbabwe. And when you take a look on that situation, it shows that the people can literally have more reasons to protest than in Kenya. But given that it's happening in Kenya, which was quite more stable than Zimbabwe, you can actually see that the people of Zimbabwe now, they can, at any point in time, they can decide to say, guys, take a look on everything is very expensive, internet, water, electricity, everything. Load shedding. The way load shedding is happening, smaller companies are being affected negatively and they are failing. They are closing, literally. So you see, at a certain point in time, you have to agree with you see. That is what can influence the people, especially when they have lessons from Kenya, and especially if South Africa then joins the queue. It will be a mess. It will be trouble everywhere. So you can actually see that this is the reason why the regime is worried. And if you go to ZANU PF people, today they've been sending messages, and those messages are centered on one thing, to say, kuno azvitwi, kuno azvitwi, kuno azvitwi. That is the message which is being sent in Nevarakashi. All of them, almost all of them, they are agreeing kuti kunoku azvitwi. It's because they are afraid of that activity. Gonna if protests happen in Zimbabwe, and given the polarization which is in Zimbabwe right now, if protests happen in the CBD Harare, vanhu vakanzi vagona kupinda murodhi muharare muya kadoka varimo, then it's all over. And one of the shocking things is, do you know that Kenya, the way their state house is placed, it's more strategic. It will take long for people to get to the state house, because the state house is not easily is not in an easily accessible area. You see, it's a different ball game altogether with the Zimbabwean state house, where Zimbabwean state house is very, very close to the CBD itself. And also, if you take a look on the reason why these people are more worried, this government is more worried, and the issues they've been discussing are that if you take a look, the proximity from the military headquarters, the police headquarters, the state house, the Mukwati building, and in the Mukwati, I don't know the actual name, Mnangagwa, the High Court, the Supreme Court, that area, guys, it's a very small area. If they say we are flooding the streets of Harare, vamwe vachibva kuna Heathcliff, vamwe vachibva kwese to the northwestern suburbs, northeastern suburbs, the eastern suburbs, vamwe vachibva ku the western suburbs and the southern suburbs vakasangana vese muharare kuti tasangana nhasi, they can easily shut down the whole city of Harare. You see, that is the reason why these guys are worried nezvinhu zviri kuitika kuKenya. But I don't think that the people of Zimbabwe at this point in time they will need to do that. I personally, I don't think that the people of Zimbabwe will need to take a template from Kenya. They need to improvise their own thing. They need to think about their own thing and how to do it, because lessons have been learned from Kenya, which means from Zimbabwe they will need to learn their own lessons if they want to protest successfully, such that tinomuka tona chivayo amjeri, tinomuka tona vanamfumira vakazonzi havana kubama 90 million vanyatso charge kwa chaizvo, tinomuka tona inonzi chii drugs gate vanhu vakujeri, tinomuka tona the issue ye Al Jazeera documentary iyaya yakuunza vanhu kuti vazopindura nyaya dzavo. You can actually see that those things can happen if Zimbabweans plan their own way, because as it stands right now, it seems as if this template from Kenya, they are closing every possible loophole to see how best they can deal with that issue. And but remember that in Kenya, avana internet. That is also another issue. In Zimbabwe, they will gladly quickly switch off internet to try and stop everything and anything. So these are the issues, but I can tell you that they are worried. The people in Zimbabwe, they are actually worried because they know kuti vanhu vakabuda mabudira vakaita 2017, then it's a mess. Especially if it happens in Bulawayo, if it happens in Gweru, in Mutare, in Masvingo, Bedbridge, every town, vanhu vakabuda mabudiro iwayo. You see kuti they will be worried because other cities are very tiny, are very small, which means by the time they will get reinforcements to other cities, and you know, when a military barrack is almost outside a town, for example in Masvingo, it's almost outside the town. If people manages to block the roads, it means in the CBD vanenge take over the whole CBD. Those are the issues which are worrying government yedu ya Zimbabwe. So, you know, people can easily do these things if they organize themselves. That is the reason why these people are worried. And given the fact that ZANU PF macho mune makakatano mune kurwisana, and they don't trust the people in the military, in the CIA, or in the police, they don't trust each other. So madara ya kungoshanisa zvawo orders and everything, but they don't trust each other. That is the reason why they are getting more worried. So the only way for these guys to save themselves is for them to invite Nelson Chamisa, to talk to Nelson Chamisa, and find each other. That is the only way they can save themselves, because the people of Zimbabwe will find their own way, which is different from the one of Kenya. And once they find their own way, which is different from the one of Kenya, then they will fail to stop it, because Zimbabwe is more complicated. You know, what happened in Kenya, it can happen in Zimbabwe at a rate of 5 times or 10 times more than Kenya. Remember kuti vana vakangotanga vachingoda chete kuti finance bill and they were very peaceful. Imagine kuti if it is to happen in Zimbabwe, how are we going to do it? You see, you can actually see that it will result to one thing. In Zimbabwe, people won't be demanding anything less than the 2023 elections to be revisited. And what it means is it will be the installation of the correct president who won the elections. And the constitution says you can only be president kana iwewe wakavoterwa nevanhu ukawina 50% plus 1 vote. So we know zvakaitika pama-election. Then also, if you take a look onto the case of Zimbabwe, in Zimbabwe the justice system is dead. It's not working. It's different from Kenya, where the Chief Justice anobuda achita urge the government to respect human rights, to respect lives. You see a judge passing a judgment against the government and its institutions. You can see that this is something different, which means when the people of Zimbabwe think to get into the streets, they have to know that they are on their own. They are their own masters. They are their own saviors. They have to save themselves. Yet in Kenya, they are being saved by the courts here and there. In Zimbabwe, you know that you don't have any assistance from anybody, which means you have to stand your ground. You see, that is the reason why intimidation is growing. They are trying by all means possible to intimidate the people, such that the people will not think to get into the streets. You see, so it's something, a great lesson from Kenya. The people of Zimbabwe are seeing that this is possible. You can actually force the government to reverse some of the things through mass protests and peaceful protests. But the government should know that once you use tear gas, once you use water cannons, once you use any other means which are violent, bullets, etc., you are then forcing the people to do an extra mile or to go an extra mile. Now, the people of Kenya are now demanding the State House. It's because of where the government has taken them to. They have dragged the people of Kenya too far. So you can actually see that these mistakes and everything else, what they contribute is panic, especially when you don't trust each other. 2030 all those issues, if you put them together, you can actually see the reason why they are scared, especially by the issue. Vice President weku Kenya ariku implicate kwa the CIA, the intelligence of Kenya and the Vice President, they are already fighting. So it's something else. But before I go, Team Zimbabwe, today we are commemorating or we are remembering, I do not know the actual name, the term Ratinga Shandisa or the word, but we are remembering Team Redura Kauraiwa in 2008, vanhu vese vakagurwa maoko in 2008, vanhu vese vakaremadzwa in 2008, 27 June vamugabe muoffice. This is the day vanhu ravakambunyikidzwa vakamanikidzwa vese kunovhotera Mugabe akawana 90 something percent of the vote, forcefully beating people, vakamirira vanhu kuti sabhuku nevanhu vake. You see, this is the day, and we remember the 27 June 2008 attack. It's something very, 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 very sad. Team Zimbabwe, we lost a lot of lives. More than 500 opposition leaders and activists. Turkutaura about vanhu vaitungamirira, more than 500 of them were murdered, and several civilians, particularly thousands of them, were also murdered in that operation. 27 June vamugabe muoffice. It's just that vazhinji vacho they were not recorded because vairova vachita mafira mberi, and hakuna aimbozvitaura kuti munhu afa, kwaingoripoti kwa sabhuku kuno kwatofiwa vanhu, munhu otovigwa just like that, imagine. And nyaya idzodzo dzakangozopera dzakadaro, and vanhu vari kuripirana ngozi mudzimba umu zvichingopera zvakadaro. It's said, Team Zimbabwe, kuti that happened, and that has never been resolved. Up to this day, we have never seen the government resolving that. We also have a Gukura Hundi issue, never resolved. Murambatsvina issues, never resolved. Tokwe Mukosi issues, never resolved. So many things happening, but without the government willing to resolve them. So we put in prayers the families of the fallen cadres, the fallen heroes, the fallen comrades. And remember, this struggle has claimed a lot of young people and a lot of brilliant minds. Vana itaidza mara vese vakaenda. You don't even know what happened to Itai Dzamara up to this day. It's said, Team Zimbabwe. So it is what it is. We'll continue to watch and see how these people are going to sustain themselves. But there is fear across Harare. There is fear across Harare because of what is happening in the politics, in the body politics. But we continue to watch and see what is going to happen next. We continue to watch and see how they are going to survive. Dictators, they always fall one way or the other. Dictators always fall one way or the other. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And thank you very much for the support. K. Mandla, thank you very much. Tindo Vicky, thank you very much. Michael Masimba, Ikanya, Temba, Weston, Andrew, K. Thank you very much, everybody, for the contributions and the comments. And continue supporting us, and let us continue to fight for change. Change is coming to the nation of Zimbabwe. And as the young people of Zimbabwe, we are pledging ourselves to free the nation Zimbabwe without fear or favor. We will do what we are supposed to do as the young people. And at a certain point in time, if you die, if you don't die because of an accident or because of another disease, or if you don't die trying to cross the border, or if you are not killed because you are a foreigner elsewhere, you will die of any other thing. which does not, which is not so good for you. So which means there is a time where we need to say, let us fight for change. Let us sacrifice for the sake of change. We have to agree, and I know that we will reach consensus. One of the days we will reach consensus. It is what it is. We'll continue to watch and see. Kenya, they've done it. They've won. The finance bill was scrapped because of Kenyans. And they are continuously fighting. We'll see what is going to be tomorrow. The military has been deployed, and, you know, they've tried by all means possible to contain the situation. But we'll see tomorrow if the people will be backing down or if they will be continuing. So this is what happens. Dictators always fall. When you do things without the consideration of the people, one day you will fall. You might kill others, but pacha uya vamwe very worse than vawaka uraya, vekuti they will force you out. They will come with a different philosophy. They will come with a different mindset and a different narrative, and they will take you out. So it is what it is. We'll continue to watch and see. Innocent, thank you. Olisma, thank you very much as well. So I do not want to take it much longer. We have gone too far. Wisdom says August is too far. Yes, August is too far. Ebet, thank you very much for coming. Ebet, thank you very much, my brother. So August, as we always say, August is too far because the people of Zimbabwe, they are suffering. If you take a look on how the people were arrested in Avondale there, the way they are suffering, their bail has been deferred to 12th July. Imagine, guys, imagine. And one of them, Antorine Plaster, Arim Jeremomo, they don't care. And Dagatombono Wangakabereka Mwana, again, they don't care. You see, those people, they don't deserve to be there, guys. Avase violent, avana chimwe chinche, vaita, vaingo celebrate, vachita braira and everything else. But because of this government, because of these sellouts, you know, but we continue to fight, we continue to pray, and one day something will give in. The people of Zimbabwe will free themselves. Thank you very much for coming.